Welcome to the newest episode of Saved by the Books, where two ladies with opposite reading tastes discuss all things reading.
Hey guys, what's up? And welcome to another episode of Saved by the Books. Paige and Becky are back, and we are talking kind of like mid-year,
like a wrap-up
type of thing. We figured we could just hang out and chat with you guys and go over all the things that we've read this year and some of the stuff that we love, things that we don't like, things like that. So yeah, go grab something to drink and listen to this episode, I guess. So I actually need to pull up my Goodreads again because I meant to look up and see what my DNFs were, and I didn't do that. But anyway, so for this year, I have read 82 books of 87, which is my goal on Goodreads. It says I'm 36 books ahead of schedule.
Awesome. I've done 48 books out of 52. I just did obviously one for each week of the year, and I plan on upping it. So I'm like kind of right on track. I'm almost done with another book, so I wanted to be done with 52 by July, but life happens, so I'm pretty happy with it.
I don't know if I'll up my goal or not. I might just like leave it alone and just let it be whatever, because I don't really like look at it too much. So yeah, I feel like I've read a lot of like romance this year, and so the thing about romance books is they typically don't stand out to me. So like it's hard for me to be like, oh, I have so many new favorites, because I'm like, I mean, I liked them, they were fine, but yeah, I did end up with some faves.
Right, and see, I've read more fantasy this year, which is and sci-fi,
which
is so weird.
Though I read paranormal romance and like fantasy romance, so like
it kind of, yeah,
they're the same.
It's just weird because usually I do read more romance. That's the big genre, or contemporary, and some of my favorites have actually been fantasy and sci-fi, which is totally not the norm for me. So yeah, but I guess we can start with DNFs. I DNF'd 3 books. 2 were, I think all 3 were arcs that I got.
Also DNF'd 3 books.
Yeah, and so they were all contemporary, like, and 2 of them were like contemporary romances, and it was like the writing style or stuff like that I just didn't care for.
Yeah, I was kind of the same way. 2 of them are contemporary romance. One of them's like paranormal romance, and all 3 of them I was just bored and I wasn't caring what was gonna happen, so I just like ended up not finishing it. Yeah. I have a few books on my currently reading right now that have been on there for months because I just haven't finished them. So I guess they're technically DNFs right now, but like I plan to finish them. It's just I put them down for something else. But they are, let's see, Now I Rise, which is the sequel to And I Darken by Kirsten White. That one I know for sure I will finish because like I really liked the first one, so like I just need to be in the mood. Hard Bitten, which is the 4th Chicagoland Vampire series. I started it right before we went to New York, and I didn't want to bring it with me, and then by the time we got back I was into other things. And then the other 2 are pretty recent, so they're still currently readings, I guess. So not too many.
No, and I'm like, because of BookTube, I've been more willing to DNF, because why waste my time reading books I'm not going to enjoy? And so if you don't know what DNF is, it's do not finish. So I've been more willing to do that because I do have so many books on my TBR. It's ridiculous that I don't need to struggle through a book, you know, for weeks at a time if I'm not actually going to enjoy it. Yeah. So I'm kind of happy like that I've come to that point.
For me, it's always still hard to know like if I'm really DNFing it or if like I'm just not in the mood, because I'm such a mood reader. Yeah. And I talked about this I think in a video at some point, I don't know, but I have also realized that if I really like a book, I'm going to seek out like every other book in the world that like is similar, like it's either like similar like storyline or like genre or like tone, however you want to like say it. But like, for example, I just read American Royals by Catherine McGee, and so now I'm like, I want all of the like Washington DC contemporaries, like all of them. So yeah, but those like the books that I have on my currently reading, I guess, are the kind of the mood ones that like I haven't fully said no to yet.
So, okay, so how many series have you read this year?
Well, I've finished 6.
Okay.
I thought we were just doing the ones we finished.
Oh, I did. So okay. So I started and finished 4. So there was nothing that kind of carried over. Well, I guess it's 5 because I read Brazen and the Beast. So that's the second one in Sarah McLean's.
Well, I started that one.
Right.
Oh wait, no, I have more. Hold on. I don't know what were those series.
So I read the Royals, which I loved. I actually read the books backwards. I read Her Royal Highness, and then I read well, it's called the Royals, and now what is it called now? Sorry, I'm checking Goodreads. And those are really cute contemporary royals, which I was totally in the mood for at the time. Oh, I don't know what it's called now because it's not updated on here. Anyways, but it's The Royals by Rachel Hawkins. I also am almost done, like as of today, with the Percy Jackson series. It's taken me forever to read them. I have no idea why it's taken me forever to read them. I have loved every single book. So yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me. And I also have already bought his other series. So I'll get to those because I'm totally in a Greek myth like vibe right now. So I haven't really gone outside of that. Besides The Traitor Circle by Erin Beatty. Oh my gosh, I think that's we were just talking about this. It's one of our favorites.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about that.
Yes,
about this series.
Yeah.
So
go get them. I'm gonna tell you that now.
Yeah, like I want to say like the series overall, like all of them is probably like 4 or 4.5 stars. Yes. Like the second one is my favorite.
Yes. Which we were saying how weird it is that because usually those are the ones we don't like as much, but there was so much growth, I think, in that book.
Yeah. And it's an interesting series to read because, especially if you're looking at it from the perspective of like what genre it should be like shelved in, I guess, because here's my thing. With young adult, technically, if you're gonna look at statistics and demographics, young adult is considered 18 to 25. We're both out of the young adult range.
We are.
No matter how you spin it. Yeah. But obviously in reading and how they shelve fiction, young adult is really more like teenager. I feel like we need a teen and young adult. Like I feel like they should be, I think it should follow demographics.
So something like you have something middle grade, and then you have like a middle section, and then you do young adult, and then new adult, and then adult.
I think new adult is completely. I think new adult is the wrong label. I think that that new adult should be young adult. I think it should follow the demographics.
Right, because new adult, it would be, because you're a newly adult from,
right, because that's 18 to 25.
Yeah. So it's a shift.
But yeah, so in the Traitor's Circle, the first one's Traitor's Kiss, and they started out in like teenage years. And then they're in their 20s when it's over. And I think the first book is young adult. Like the plot isn't super hard to follow. It kind of has a more heavy emphasis on the a heavier emphasis on like the romance and things like that. Even
the battle wasn't very heavy hitting, I don't think. There was one scene where it is a lot that, because it deals with the character, but I don't think it was compared to what you see in the next book, the second book and the third book.
And then by the end of the third book, like there's so many like little bitty plot threads that are just going in a million different directions, and there's all these like really hard, heavy scenes that the characters go through, and there's just so many like intricacies. And so yeah, like this series, I'm going to reread it. And so like it's on my, like, spoiler alert, it's on my fave books of the year, because like I want to reread it so that I can maybe like catch some like little threads and things that change, which it kind of surprised us because The Traitor's Kiss wasn't very hyped when it came out.
No, it wasn't. And I think that's because it was marketed in the wrong way.
Yeah, it was kind of marketed as like a Mulan retelling. And
it's not at all.
And it's not. It's fantasy, and I mean there's like matchmakers, and so technically that is a little bit of a thread of the Mulan story, but
it's like a subplot. It's not a heavy, the matchmaking part, I think, okay, the main character, there's a lot of espionage, so the main character ends up being known for her ability to read people and see things that others don't, and that's how she kind of gets, well, and it started off with her being the matchmaker's like apprentice assistant, and so, and she gets dragged into like all of the politics of the kingdom, and it's like, it's a wild ride.
It is, but I mean, I read them all back to back, like in a 4-day span.
See, and I read Traitor's Kiss when it came out, and then I read the second one, Traitor's Ruin, in May, I think. And then I just finished Traitor's Kingdom last night.
Yeah, and see, I read Traitor's Kiss when it came out, but then I decided, because like you guys know, I've talked about my memory isn't very good, so I reread it last Monday.
I didn't really remember much from the first.
I know, because I asked you, I was like, so what exactly happened? And she kind of gave a brief summary, which was correct.
I mean, I know like the general plot, but like the small things, I'm like, oh.
And in this case, the small things do matter. Like there's stuff, there's like a character introduced in the first book that comes like to be a main player in the following.
Yeah,
like,
when I realized
and
that,
I loved that character.
When I realized that, I was like, maybe I'm thinking of a different character. Which character are you thinking of?
Starts with an H. He's not even a big deal in the first, or he's just there. I don't want to give anything away, so go read the books.
Text it to me. Or write it down somewhere, because we're not each other. Because there's like a character, like a little,
I think that's how you spell it.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
I like him too.
Yes.
Because there's like there's a family who has a lot.
Oh yes,
and
this family.
Like,
yes.
In the first book, they're there, but in the third book, they come back.
Right, and it's like mind blown.
Yeah, so it's like a very. It ended up being a very intricate and really well done series.
Yes, and I will say this is from a person that doesn't do fantasy. Like I honestly never did fantasy up until last year, really, and this may have been one of the first ones. And so also, I was always from the romance side.
The author reacted to one of our stories the other day.
Yes, and
I was like, oh gosh, like, I don't know.
Well, when I posted a picture on my Instagram, and her husband both liked it, and then it's the publisher's Fierce Reads. And so they've been pushing, well, because the third book just came out last week. So they've been having pictures and stuff pop up. And so I've been like, oh my gosh, I love it. And all this series and all that. So anyways, as you can tell, The Traitor's Circle by Erin Beatty is one of our favorites.
Yes,
the whole thing.
For sure.
And luckily, all the books are out. So you can honestly just binge it in a month, in a week, whatever, however your reading pace is. So they're all out there, so you don't have to wait. Because I think I've now kind of become that type of person where I used to be where I was okay with getting the book whenever it came out. But now I'm like, oh, I like having the whole series at one time. So I can just binge it when I want to.
And then the final series I loved, and then I finished, and I can't wait for the last one to come out this year, is Renegades by Marissa Meyer. So that has that sci-fi
I've talked about this on my
aspect.
channel, I feel like a few times.
So, but the first book is Renegades, the second book is Arch Enemies, and the third book, Supernova, comes out this fall. So I've never been sci-fi type of person at all, and this has some of the elements, and it has the superhero element, which I've never been
See,
big
my thing,
on.
I love superhero movies. I've always loved them, but like I don't typically like
I like the movies. I grew up with brothers,
but like I've never like read comics,
Yeah.
or like, and even the like DC Icon series.
I know, those are the ones.
I have a couple on my Kindle because at some point they were like $1.99 or something, so I'll like usually buy if they're like $1.99. But yeah. This is also one of the series that I read this year, so
Yeah.
that's why I'm jumping in.
Right, I was about to say, so.
But yeah, I really like them. I feel like they're a good, in the video I talked about them, I feel like I said this, but it was like somewhere in the middle of like Marvel and The Incredibles.
Yes.
So like it's very much like YA superheroes.
Right.
And like, I'm telling you, like have Arch Enemies before you finish Renegades.
Yes.
Because you're not gonna want to like wait.
No, there's a cliffhanger like type of thing.
Yeah.
And so you want to jump. It was one of those, I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, like I was out of town, and so I had to wait, and I was like, oh my gosh, how, why would she do this? And I'm so glad I started both books when
Yeah,
they were
and
both out.
honestly, like the end of Arch Enemies has a cliffhanger,
does.
but it's one I saw coming, so
Yes.
like I was kind of like, well, okay. But yeah, I was still kind of mad I had to wait. But yeah,
Not
we'll
long.
I guess we'll be finishing it later this year, maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Oh, I will.
Both
for
of our
sure.
TBR shelves are insane. I have read like a million series. 6, and I have 9 on my list. The first one is The Boleyn King. It's an alternate history by Laura Anderson, and it basically like one of the babies that Anne Boleyn miscarried, if that baby had like lived and was a king.
I think you got me that book, and I haven't read it yet.
Oh my god, the third one. Okay, I have like a weird relationship with this series because like I feel like it's kind of the same as like Philippa Gregory. You know how like you get in like the middle and it's kind of like a slog to get through because it's just like, oh my god, it's all these people, and then like you finish and you're like, all that stuff was important to know. But so like the third one especially was like this. Like I was bored like the first half, and I was like, am I even gonna finish this? And then like the last 100 pages, I cried like nonstop the entire 100 pages. And yeah, there's a second trilogy after that one that I haven't started yet because like I'm not over it. I'm not over what happened at the end of that last one. The next one is the Winter's Curse trilogy. I think that's what it's called. I just wrote Winter's Kiss on here because whatever. And that was a really good fantasy. That one I would say is like on par with the Trader Circle.
Well, and they've actually, I think they actually compared it with, like there was an image on that the publishers did.
Well,
I think it was.
I just said that because I just thought it. I'm a
Look at you. I swear they said it was like on par with it, and now I have to read it because I have the first one of that one, I believe.
I have all of them.
Yeah, and so okay, this is see?
Yeah.
The Winter's Curse. Like y'all check out Fierce Reads, like they honestly compare it together. So
yeah, they definitely compare, and the characters grow a lot. It's just, I mean, yeah, like I would say like everything we said about Trader Circle, I would say about Winter's Curse. I reread the Paper Princess trilogy by Erin Watt. It's just as good and trashy as the first time around, so go for it if you want to reread it.
Yeah, those are really good.
But basically that one is about, I never even really said what the Winter's Curse is about because it's so hard to explain, but it's about 2 countries and they go to war. But like obviously there's a lot more in depth to that, but like, oh man, there's so much going on, I don't even know where to start. But with the Paper Princess trilogy, it's about a girl, and she's essentially adopted by this guy who's like her father's best friend, because both of her parents are dead, and there's 5 brothers, and they don't want her there. Like, it's trashy, and there's a romance and
drama,
like
good.
everything, every like ridiculous plot line that you could think of probably happens in this series, and it's good like the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, isn't there 4 books? Is there 4 or is there 5?
Well, I think there's 5, but the first 3 follow like 2 characters, and then the next ones follow somebody else.
But they're amazing, and they're really good, quick reads, but they're basically like YA romance. Like,
oh yeah,
completely. And like she said,
but then
I mean,
at the same
so
time,
good.
I feel like it is pretty explicit. So like, as an adult, yeah, I would say new adult, but the characters are high school age. So like, I could see like, I would say like, I could see a high schooler reading it.
Oh yes,
but like, if I'm like a middle schooler, I don't know if I would.
No, I would never want any of my students reading that, because no.
Yeah, so like parental advisory on that one a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah, I would definitely, yes, and it depends, yeah. Any of y'all with daughters out there, just know that is one that you probably would want to read first before.
Oh, I don't know if I would even want to know my daughter read it. like I don't want her to know I read it. I don't want, no, because another, like, the rest of them are all like romance series. The first one's called Stage Dive. It's by Kylie Scott, and these books are basically, each one's about a different member of a band called Stage Dive, and they all, like, it's all a romance, so every one of them falls in love. Every single relationship is so different and so like, I can't say that they're not predictable, because there's definitely moments that I like predicted it easily, but I was really impressed with how differently all of the romances came together. Each of the characters feels like a different character, which with romance series, they can kind of start to like blend in and seem like the same person. And like, literally, they are laugh out loud funny, like literally laughing out loud. Like, I would have, like, if I had been reading this in public, people would have been looking at me like, what is wrong with this woman?
These are the ones you just finished?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And then the other ones, one of them is the Mob Ball series, and one of them is the London Mob series. They're by the same person, Michelle St. James. They're literally about like guys in the mob, and they fall in love, and they're great. I definitely recommend them. There's another one, I think it's the Chicago Mob series. I still need to finish that one. I think I read the first 2, and then I was kind of like over mobsters.
Stuff.
And then the one that I am in the middle of the last book for, it's the Reckless Beat series by Eden Summers. It's another like rock star romance thing. And these are good, and they are like really quick reads. The first one is so tropey, it's ridiculous. Oh my god, like literally the character gets bashed on the head and she goes blind. Like literally, there are like some trope filled romances.
I was about to say, our friend Kate would have a field day with that discussion,
like,
because
you
of
can
that.
imagine me, like, what book was it that we were reading? Oh, What Alice Forgot.
Yes, with
literally,
that,
our friend Kate is a doctor, and so like, and I'm a former nurse, and so like, I was literally like messaging her like, I just don't think that this is realistic. And it's kind of the same like with the first one. I was like, you know what, I wanted something tropey and ridiculous, so I'll just roll with it. Fine, she's blind for like 24 hours, whatever.
I'm actually surprised you didn't message like in our little group about this, like, oh my gosh, like how do they think this actually works? Because like, that's something that totally happens.
Yeah, literally any type of like medical anything that happens, I'm like, and I do this with TV shows and stuff too, I'm like, that's not realistic. Like that, no, it wouldn't happen. So yeah, but those are all the series I finished, or mostly finished.
Well, that's pretty good. Some of those I'll have to put on mine again. So
Stage Dive for sure.
I know, that's,
and Winter's Curse.
Yeah,
for
sure. those are ones I'll have to do. So,
and Bowling King for sure.
I know, and I have like the beginning of most of those.
All right, so
the favorites.
Yeah, moving on and going to our favorites. You go ahead and go first.
So the first book I read of the year, it wasn't the first book, it was in the first few. That was my favorite, was actually Becoming by Michelle Obama.
I didn't even know you read that. Like,
how did you not know I read that? I actually did it on audio, and I have the book, because she is the narrator, and it was a really impactful for her story, in hearing some of the different things as her as a mom going through some of it. And I don't know, I just found it really interesting for that backstory. And like learning that, you know, she didn't pass the bar the first time. And see, my brother just graduated from law school, and so he's going through the whole studying and all that type of stuff. And so just learning those little things about her experience with law school and all that, since my brother is going through the same type of stuff, it gave me a better understanding of him, but also like of her and her as a mom with her daughters and all the craziness I think any presidential candidate goes through, and the pressure on the family. And then Brazen and the Beast by Sarah McLean. I am a diehard Sarah McLean fan. This is probably one of my favorite books by her ever. Like her characters. Yeah.
Okay, so I have Brazen and the Beast because we got it at BookCon. And which I guess is something else like we could mention that we did this year. But yeah, so we did that. We did a whole episode about it.
Yeah.
Go listen. I don't know if we'll go back. But yeah, so we got that book at BookCon. I read the first one and I really liked the characters in the first one. But I haven't, and I started the second one.
Right.
But like I haven't finished it. It's one of those books that like I started it, but then I was like, no, you have a million other things to read.
Yeah.
So.
And I actually already ordered it, like the copy, because through her own like local bookstore, she does a lot of the signed copies, and like she has a book club online that I'm a part of, and so she does little like happies that go with it if you order. So I already ordered. She
totally like reminds me of me, because with the Creating and Co book club and then the podcast and then like everything's, I'm like, yeah, that's literally my life.
Right. And then she got a puppy and she has a cute little daughter, so I'm like, okay, so love her. And then of course I absolutely love Trader's Ruin by Erin Beatty, and that's one that we both
have on our favorites.
Yeah, and so I don't know, I just loved that book, and it's gorgeous.
I really like the characters of Brazen and the Beast. I know I'm like backtracking now, but yeah, I really like that. That's one thing I will say too, like with reading the first one and then like having the second one. I really like the characters that she chose.
Yes, and it takes place in like not the typical London. It takes place like in the docks and all that. So it's like the underbelly of London. It's like
historical romance.
Right. Like, and so she did a lot of research when it comes to that time period, some of the places, all that type of stuff. And so I really do like that about her.
Which, throwing this out there, this is one of the things I've realized this year with writing. There are books that like talk about like medical things for writers that you would need to know as a writer. There are books that talk about detective and like crime stuff for writers. There needs to be like historical era type of books that are for writers, because obviously like you can go through and like find like all of the like stuff about whatever era you want to like read or write about, but I feel like it needs to be like a day in the life, like a even if it's like a series, like just like things that writers need to know, because it's like you need to know like daily stuff and like the not necessarily like, oh, I don't know why I'm thinking about like the Chinese rebellion, but like, you know, I don't know.
Well, and see, because I know
total
most of
side note, not even ever related to this topic, but whatever.
Because a lot of the ones that deal with the books I read and that take place in England or Scotland, they actually have to go and see the places, but then their main source is just the museums. So it is, I can see, it is like harder for them.
Museums are a really good place,
right? And I know,
but like then
some
again,
have read
to travel to the museum.
Yeah, and I know some have read like the diaries and journals from that time period, but that still only like gives them that one person's, you know, experience, I guess. So.
Which I guess could kind of, did I read that series this year? No, I must have read it last year, because like one of the things that kind of brought to mind was The Discovery of Witches, the All Souls trilogy. It's one of my favorites of all time. And the second book has a lot of like historical stuff in it, and yeah, it's like really interesting, like just daily life stuff, especially because it's like the Tudor era type stuff. So like we know it really well, like with the monarchy, but like it's really cool to like see it from like the just general person,
right? Like a commoner from that time period. And that, like, you know, it's just
Yeah, it's
right,
really
because
interesting.
usually the most we hear is basically the experience from the plague, you know, when people were going through that, but it wasn't like before, after, that type of thing. Like, you would have to get into...
I can't believe it's been that long since we've read Philippa Gregory. Like, I can't believe that it's like last year.
Right.
Because it feels like it was just like a few months ago. I don't know, which I guess it was, but...
I mean, but that was our whole life last year.
Yeah.
It was reading Philippa Gregory, if you did not know that. So.
Yeah, maybe, like, I feel like that's probably why this year for me is, like, so romance heavy and just, like, easy reads, because I'm like, last year... We did Philippa Gregory. I read a couple of the Outlander books. I did All Souls trilogy, and the Mistborn.
Shadowhunters.
Yeah, I did read the Shadowhunters.
I gave
like, yeah, I read a lot of stuff last year, so that's maybe why it's also like easy reads for me. But anyway,
what were your faves?
The first favorite is A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I freaking loved this book. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but it's different in the fact that the main character, one of them has cystic fibrosis, right? Yeah, so she has cystic fibrosis, and I think it really dug deeper into like the enchanted castle and like what the townspeople are thinking, and just it was really well done.
Like, she created a really good world.
Yeah, like the world building in it was amazing. I loved the characters. They like, the main character was sassy and I love it. And yeah, like it was just really well done. And it was a really thick book. We read it for one of our group reads, and then I felt bad because it was like over 500 pages.
But it was quick.
But it was a really quick read. But I always feel bad, like if I end up suggesting a book for our group read and then it's like really long, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry.
Well, and what surprised, like, everyone finished it, and because we read it for a readathon, everyone finished it really quick. It was, and I will say this, I have loved the author so much since following her Instagram. It's Bridget.
Yeah, I love her. I love her Instagram.
How do you say her last name? It's
Kimmer
or something. And
she actually has written a few like contemporary.
Right, and I have one of her books that I didn't know was her book that I need to read, but
yeah,
like I really like some of these authors. Like, I love Sarah McLean, and I love her even more because of her Instagram, and just like Bridget, like just following them and seeing and how like down to earth, just like Marissa Meyer is.
I feel like we've kind of dug more into that whole world this year too, because like last year we weren't like really big on social media with books at least. So yeah, it's just really cool to like kind of talk to your favorite authors like on the internet. I don't know.
Yeah, and like I think because, not that I've written anything really this year, but like starting writing a novel and stuff and seeing that perspective, it gave me so much more appreciation for the authors out there and what they put into it, and even their families, like how, you know, all of that. And so instead of just following the few of the romance ones, like I've bridged out, and you know, a lot of these like young adult or fantasy writers I've followed, and so it really makes me like fall in love with her work even more.
The next one is Romanov by Nadine Brandeis. She also has a few other books out that I have not read, but this one follows the Romanov family, and it's at the tail end of the revolution in Russia, and there's just like a little hint of magic in there, which I loved. And Anastasia, like the animated movie, which it's a Fox movie, guys. It's not a Disney movie. I know Disney owns Fox, but Anastasia has not been inducted as a princess in Disney World, so she's technically not a Disney princess.
But she needs to be.
I'm just throwing that out there. But like literally, it was one of my favorite animated movies growing up. Like I had her doll, like she had a Barbie. I had that. Like I had all the toys. I loved Anastasia. And so like reading Romanov like brought back all those feelings, and it was just so good. And I love like the little hint of magic in there, and I love how like this is like one of the, I don't want to say like conspiracies of history, but like one of the I guess it is kind of a conspiracy, because basically for years and years people thought that Anastasia, the princess or the Grand Duchess, whatever, lived, and her entire family was executed. And yeah, there were people throughout history who like came up and said they were the Duchess Anastasia and stuff. And so like there's one that even like went as far as to meet the grandmother in Paris. Like that's what the animated movie's about. Of course, the animated movie kind of goes on a different thread, but like that's based in reality. And so it's like one of my favorite moments of history to read and like things in history to read, but also like this book. So it's like right up my alley. I read it in like literally a few hours in like one sitting. So
I just haven't read it yet. I'm so bad. Like it's been on my shelf to read.
It's one of those books
just like this next one.
It's one of those books that like I'm like, you need to get this, you need to get this. And
I did, and then I just haven't gotten to it yet because I've been reading all these other things.
Yeah, I just love it so much. And like I said, a lot of it stems from like my love of like that whole like story. The next one is American Royals by Catherine McGee. This one is kind of an alternate history, but it takes place in present day. And it basically is if America had a royal family, if we had given George Washington the crown. And really similarly to The 1000th Floor, which is her other book series, I guess.
Yeah, that we read last month.
That we did a podcast episode on. The world building is amazing. It's just like she just weaves in her world building through like just like little bitty like snippets, like little details or things the characters will say, and it's just so seamless and I love it. Like maybe that's like my writer brain coming out, but I'm just like, oh my god, you're amazing. I want to be able to do this. There's a lot of characters, and I will say like that's like my only negative, because there's so many different perspectives that it's hard to like
keep them straight.
Well, like I don't like really get into a story. But I loved the characters in this. They were all great, and I love the story. Cannot wait until the second one. Oh my god, like I finished it and it was like one of those books that like you put down and you're like, well, what do I do with my life now? Because like it's over.
When it comes out September.
Yeah, the actual book, because we got it at BookCon, and the book doesn't come out until September 3rd, but like it's one that like I would say pre-order. Like it's that good. And then the last one is the Trader's Circle trilogy, which we've already talked a lot about this episode. So yeah, those are my faves this year.
So and I'm like, American Royals, that's one of my top ones to read, and just like Romanov. It's just getting out of this whole Greek myth thing that I'm in right now.
Yeah, I feel like it's like once you're in that like mood of like what you want to read, like you're there for a while. So
So and then we figured talk about the readathons that we've done, because we've actually kind of done quite a bit this year. So we both did the 3 Creating & Co. ones.
Yeah, so if you are like, if you're not familiar, basically I own a planner shop called Creating & Co. And we also have the Creating & Co. book club, and we do readathons every other month. And I always do like stickers that match and like bookmarks that match, like a bunch of fun stuff. It's completely free to participate, but I do like have the stuff in the shop that matches. So yeah, we both like do those, all of them. So there were 3 so far this year.
Right, and so we did the Enchantathon in February.
Which is very like fairy tale, fantasy.
Right. Which is why A Curse the Dark and Lonely was our group pick, because it was a retelling. Then we did Book Island. So it's basically like springtime, you want to escape
to Book Island. And so it was very like beachy reads and contemporary type thing. We never have like, you have to read that genre, but like
it kind of works out that way sometimes. Like most of the books I actually read for these was from my TBR. The only ones I purchased were the group reads, because and like for Book Island, our group read was Daisy Jones and the Six. So and then the one in June was Journey to Atlantis. What was that group?
Just like my favorite.
Oh, that was a Beholder, which anyways, that's not a favorite. That's a different discussion another day. But like, so we did Journey to Atlantis, but then we forgot, we also did the Creating & Co. book map. So that had 20...
I have that in here. So like so we did a book map this year, so we don't have group reads. We only have group reads for the readathon. So if you're on video, you can see the book map. But
how many counts?
It's the first map had 24.
Yeah.
And so that's just like an all year thing that we've been doing.
Right, and then it turned out we all basically, a lot of us finished it, and so
now I have a new book map that has 30 prompts, but the 30 prompts, like, you don't have to do all of them because you can pick your path. But yeah.
And so then I also did the owls.
I
don't remember how many of those I passed. I still need to update everything. I'm like so behind on updating like my book stuff, but I do plan on doing the newts. And then I did the Buzzwordathon from Books and Lala.
So I did Tome Topple from Thoughts on Tomes, which is where you read books over 500 pages. I did Illuminae for one of them.
Oh, I did do that one because I did read Illuminae because that worked in with my owls with some of the stuff. So I read, okay, never mind, sorry.
So I read Illuminae for sure. I can't remember if I finished the second book, but I feel like I did because I remember like finishing the second book, but I can't remember what it was. And then I also did the Buzzword readathon from Books and Lala with the word was you. And so I read a Sarah Dessen book for that. It was the only book on my shelf with you in it. And yeah, I read it. So I completed the readathon.
Yeah, I think I did Illuminae, and then I think Six of Crows hit over 500, or is right there.
Because I read Six of Crows around the same time, but I don't know if I read that for
which one.
Book I don't remember all that. So yeah, I guess I need to probably be better about keeping track of that, but whatever.
Yeah.
Overall, this reading year has been interesting.
It has. I think we've both gotten out of our, like, what we typically kind of read somewhat.
I'm over here like, nah, I was
about to say, yeah. That's why I was like looking and thinking, maybe not you.
No. I've read a lot, but I think it's mostly because I've read so many like romance books. And I was thinking about this like the other day. I used to read a lot of fan fiction that was like novel length fan fiction, and I would read like one a day.
Well, so
and so like people will like be shocked, like, because I had one day this year where I read 4 books in one day, and so like I remember a few people were like shocked, and I was like, I mean, I just sat on my couch and read all day, which I read like contemporary, so like they were easy to like get through, you know. I don't know, so I tend to read a lot. But then I'll have like times where like the second half of June I didn't read anything because I was just over it. I've also been writing a lot this year, and it has been a very difficult journey. There have been tears. There have been, like, at one point I was like, this is harder than nursing school and I hate this. But it's been interesting because I was a writer in high school. I was, but I just like this year is the year I decided to pick it back up. And so it's been interesting. So I've done Camp Nano, which is Camp NaNoWriMo, where you basically like pick your goal, and they have it in April and July. So I'm currently doing it, and I did it in April, and I will be doing NaNoWriMo in November. Yeah. So yeah, I feel like that's really it as far as like book things. But we also, I went to my first book signing this year because BookCon and
Sarah Dessen.
And then we went to Sarah Dessen like next week, and so that was really cool. So yeah, it's been a good year. Yeah, it's been good. It's been an interesting year.
I think I've learned a lot about my taste, and you know, been able to branch out there. Yeah, with a lot of things.
So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for this episode. If you are watching on YouTube, or head over to our Instagram and let us know what you've been reading. What's your favorite book of this year? All of those fun things. Don't forget to thumbs up or leave a review because it really helps us out, and subscribe if you haven't already. And
I guess that's it.
That's it. We'll see you next week.
Bye.